Join us this hour for our segment Invent America with your co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton. Discover what's next in the home improvement industry and explore new products and innovations. Or if you have that next great big idea, learn what it takes to bring your invention to the world as Michael King and Rita Crompton talk to America's inventors and innovators. Remember, the America of tomorrow is being invented today. We invite you to visit us at HomeTalkUSA.com, one of the best resources for home improvement information around today. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com. And now, we proudly present Invent America from the #1 home improvement radio program in the country, Home Talk USA, with your host, the Cajun contractor, Michael King, and his co-host, the Inventor Lady, Rita Crompton.
Hey, welcome to Home Talk USA. I'm the Cajun contractor, Michael King, along with my co-host, the Inventor Lady. We want to welcome all of you to the very best in home improvement information and education. Hey, I got some good news. We have 4 new radio affiliates that are now joining us. We have out in the Fort Madison area, KFMD 1580 AM. Also WLCI 1670 AM and 103.5 FM. And we also have Prestonburg, Kentucky, WDOC 1310 AM and WOMI 1490 AM, Owensboro, Kentucky. Now, that radio station, WOMI, was a longtime affiliate of Home Talk, but once we made that change and the Genesis Communication Radio Network went out, they had to sign a contract with somebody else, but hey, we got them back, and it's so great to have that big, powerful FM station, 99.1 FM in Owensboro, Kentucky. All right, I'd like to welcome my co-host right now. I took care of some business. She is the Inventor Lady. She is my sidekick, and she's also my friend. She's here right now, Miss Rita Crompton. Hey, Rita, thank you so much for minding the ship in my COVID era.
Well, it's so nice to see you and have you back again and to hear that wonderful Cajun voice. We missed you, and there is, I do the best I can, but there is no replacing you, my dear.
I'm the originator, right?
You
Not
are.
the duplicator. But
that's right.
Lot going on right now, Rita, in our industry. A lot of things happening politically. A lot of things are happening with, what happened to our ex-president. There's a lot going on with commerce, with tariffs. I mean, I could go on and on. I could do a whole show about that. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of fear in this country right now. But I was talking to you about it, and I want to talk about fear factor on another level that we might not ever think about. And we had a conversation while I was out. You did all the talking. I couldn't talk. I had to type and listen. And we had some great conversations that way. I never thought I can type like that. But what I'm trying to say is that we want everyone out there that has an idea that can put it on a piece of paper, listen to this show, and we want you to give you the blueprint to get your product to market. That's our promise. That's what we can do for you. But what's happening right now, Rita, is the fear factor for inventors. And I hate to have that next great idea not come to the market because the inventor just is scared to death.
Well, and you're exactly right. And there's multiple levels of the fear factor. So one is a fear of the cost, and we've talked about that multiple times. The other one is the fear of what is the economy doing, which is, where we are right now with our economy. And then the other one is fear of being ripped off. And, if an inventor can deal with all of those, more power to you. And it's our job to kind of let you know advantages, disadvantages, and what to watch for. I had one gentleman say, well, I've afraid to use an attorney because I've heard about so many scams out there. And I said, there's things to watch for. There's certain questions that they're going to ask. And if they don't ask these questions, move on. And when you ask questions, these are the answers you're looking for, or move on. And, with the same thing about being knocked off, I mean, you've got to do the best you can do. But if I say, oh, I'm not going to show anybody until my patent issues. Well, you know what? That's not always in your best interest, because you've got the patent protection. You can't go after anybody till the patent issues. But on the other hand, if you wait until the patent issues to go into the marketplace, somebody else can fill a need that you weren't expecting.
And that's the point, the different stages of fear, and which is so important. But how do you eliminate the fear? It's education. You give them the education.
Exactly.
Walk them through the blueprint. Makes it very easy.
That's exactly right. When we say, it's like, don't wait. All right. Time is your enemy. Get out there and get some feedback. We took everybody we took to ASD Market Week. And by the way, there's another ASD Market Week coming up in August, but our next one will be in March. And there were everybody was patent pending. So they at least had a provisional patent filed. And so, they got out there. They've got to be able to talk about it. You've got to find the interest. I mean, Wendy she was out there with just a provisional. She had, her prototypes were still sticky. They were so brand new. And she got some really good information. She's taking orders. And it's only been 5 months since the show. And she's actually already taking orders. So, go Wendy. She's going to be on the show with us in August, again, talking about her product and some of the issues she's had. One is manufacturing, the fear of manufacturing overseas. And I put her in touch with Greg so that he could help her find somebody that can do it in the US. Yay, another made in the USA product. So we really try to answer the fear factor questions wherever they are.
That's a good point. And I tell you, I was amazed. Last hour, we had Noah McNeely on the show, a product quick start. His story was amazing. And he gave us a lot of information. It got to the point where he was getting the people after the mistake, but now he's starting to get the people in the middle of the mistake. Now we're trying to get him to get the people before the mistake.
Exactly.
So he's starting to evolve, And I said, well, no, we hooked up with you, and we definitely can put that information out there to help you grab these companies before they make the mistake. Because a lot of times when they make that mistake, there's a good chance they're going to be out of money.
Well, it is. And there's a lot of times when, an inventor will call me and say, well, I don't have any money left and now I need you to do my marketing. It's like, I'm really sorry, but a lot of times the marketing will cost as much as everything else put together.
Time it by 3.
Yeah,
that's what I try to tell people. Take whatever it took you to get it to market. So if you spend $1 million, you're going to need $3 million in marketing. I always say time it by 3. That's right. It's a good formula.
People don't know you're out there. I had a gentleman I talked to today, and he goes, "This has never been done before." And it's like, okay, I've heard that a few times. And so when he goes, "But I'm on medication. I need you to take a look at what came back in the search and tell me what you see." And I called him and I said, "You shouldn't be doing this. There's a dozen other patents that are in the same ballpark addressing the same issue. There's a half a dozen products. 2 of them are being sold on Amazon. And this is probably, go on to your next idea." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to have an attorney look at it." And it's like, fine, you do that. Have an attorney look at it. But this is one of those times when it's like, you find an attorney that's going to, I've had an inventor that found a guy that would write a patent on a spaceship landing in the forest so you could have a one-on-one talk with God. Yeah. And it's like, probably shouldn't have gone down that road. But, so there are times when, you should be a little bit more afraid than you are. But that's just a part of, what we try to help inventors understand reality. And if you're always afraid, you're never going to get out there. And if you don't show some concerns and ask good questions, you'll be taken advantage of. Well, and as much as this inventor doesn't want to be taken advantage of, I think that's exactly the road he's going down.
If I have free advice and paid advice, I'm going to listen to that person that's going to give me that free advice first and hope that I don't have to pay for the paid advice. But to eliminate the free advice, That's not a smart person. And I hope
Well,
that person is listening to me now. You're not a smart person.
I know. It's like, okay, we've got nothing that we're looking for. They're not paying us.
We got no, no
And like,
irons in the fire here.
so it's like, all right, let's get you the information you need. And that's why we have the inventors on free so they can share their story and what we're talking about. And so the two that I've got coming up, Andy and Derry, they're both out there with products, and they got out there under patent pending status. They took the steps, they were careful, and now they want to sell their product. And that's what America is all about. And Invent America is because America invents, and it's our job to give you the best advice that we can.
Well, I know you got a jam-packed show, and we're going to have to take a short break, and we're going to have your guests. You're listening to Home Talk USA, the Invent America show, right here on the Home Talk USA radio family. I'm the Cajun Man alone with my co-host, the Inventor Lady herself, Rita Crompton. We'll be right back. Yay! Yay! Welcome back to Home Talk USA. This is the Invent America show, along with my co-host, the Inventor Lady herself, Rita Crompton. This segment of the Invent America show is sponsored by Green Products. Protect your wood from future damage with Copper Green Wood Preservative. GreenProProductsCO.net. All right, Rita, we have a great show. Let's get to it. Who's our first guest?
Our first guest today is Andy Scherer. He's got a couple of inventions out there. One is we're looking for licensing. It's out there. The other one, he just went ahead and filed the intellectual property on, and it is really cool. I got to tell you, Andy, I'm more excited about the second one than the first one, simply because I see how that honey drips all over the counter. So with that, I'm going to let you tell our audience what your second invention is.
All right. Well, it's got a working title of the anti-straw, and it'll probably have a nice flashy title when it's introduced to the market. But what it is a bottle cap, especially for plastic bottles and squeeze tubes like ketchup or mustard, anything with sticky viscous fluids. And what this bottle cap does is it gives consumers a better experience. It's just more convenient to dispense whatever product you want. What it does, how it does this is it gives increased flow. And, if you have a sticky thing, that matters. It gives more precise dispensing without sacrificing the flow. It eliminates noise entirely. A lot of times you'll squish out some mustard and then there's a big slurping sound before you get your second squirt out. And this also, this eliminates that noise completely. And when you're done squeezing, it provides a faster return action so you can get that second squeeze of whatever product that you have.
Yeah, and this technology is not new in the sense that we see it in laundry detergent bottles, so that you've got an airflow so that your laundry detergent isn't gushing out in globs and spilling all over the place. So it kind of goes in the idea with that, but now you're looking at, like you said, the honey was the obvious one, the ketchups, the mustards, sometimes the jelly, you'll see those that they're trying to deal with this issue of making an easy flow, and you've mastered it.
Well, that's right. It's not that it's impossible to do. With detergent, they have all kinds of things to do it. You could put it in a big bucket, and that way you can get it out a gallon at a time if you want. But the trick is to make it easy and convenient in the sizes that people are comfortable with for what they want to use. And what this does is takes pretty much all the existing bottles that are out there that people grab and turn over and squirt on a sandwich. It just makes it better for those.
Well, and
So deli workers will, rejoice when they get this.
I understand. I can't wait to get one myself. But inventors are often, they've got that fear factor of, trying to keep everything close to their chest or, hidden in the garage because of, they're afraid somebody else is going to steal it. So how have you dealt with the idea that you got to get out there? If nobody knows you're there, nobody's going to license it.
Well, I will confess that I was a victim of that mentality, and I did sit on it for quite some time. One thing is that I thought I couldn't produce it myself, so I better just keep it under wraps until I could. But then, it builds up, and as long as it stays in my head, two things. One, I'm not earning any money, but even more importantly, nobody's enjoying it. Nobody's benefiting from it. The reason that you become an inventor, at least for me, is because I want to make people happy. I want to see somebody have it in their kitchen, have it in their hand, and be able to feel that I contributed something to their lives. And as long as it's in my head, that's not happening. So the challenge then is simply to find a way forward where that makes sense. To get it out of your head. These things are however humble your idea is, it came to you from somewhere. And I'm a believer that we're stewards of the ideas that God gives us. We all have our unique talents, and whatever we have, we're doing a crime against ourselves if we don't bring it out there and make it show. Whether you're an artist or an engineer or an inventor, you have to do it. And
you're
it's
right
just a
on
question
that.
of finding out how.
Absolutely. And so for, I see inventors on both sides of that. One where I think that they need to be a little bit closer to the chest. And then there's other times it's like, no, it's time to get out there and show it off a little bit once you're patent pending. So what's next for you? What's your goal?
Well, licensing, hopefully, because one reason I sat on it was I was thinking of how I would produce it myself. And the more I thought about it, licensing is a much better option. So, I've contracted with someone very well.
Yes, I know her.
And I have high hopes that we'll get it out there and get real packaging companies involved so that it can be brought out to the public as soon as possible. I think it'll become a standard once it's introduced in a few products. Things like honey that nobody has managed to make flow well or convenient.
I know. And I live in Tennessee, and one of the things that they produce like crazy is honey. So we'll be getting out there and talking to some of those folks on your behalf, and certainly to some of the packaging companies, and have them point us into the right direction so that we can get your intellectual property out there and let somebody take a look at it. And just so, people understand, when we talk about licensing, that is when someone else is going to basically rent your intellectual property, make it, market it, sell it, and send you a check. And I've got a good friend that says when he was doing his own manufacturing, he could never get his hand in his own pocket because everybody else had their hand there first. And so, you're right when you say, okay, got to pay attention to the budget on this. So, Andy, how long were you working on this?
Well, the idea is very simple. It's actually almost a hack more than an invention. I feel it that way because as soon as I thought of it, it took me about a week to go ahead and demonstrate and prove the concept. And then after that, it was really 3 years sitting on it out of fear before I went ahead and did the patent discovery. Because my biggest fear was that it was already out there and just people didn't like it. But I did that, and so now it's full steam ahead.
Excellent. Good for you. Well, we are going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to have Derry Griffin with us. He has got an interesting story of his own to tell about his intellectual property. And we want to thank Noah McNeely from Product Quick Start for being one of our sponsors, and also the people out in California with Packwell Manufacturing. They do all the packaging right here in the U.S. for products. And we want to thank them very much for being a sponsor of Invent America. So stick with us. We will be right back with our next guest. Good afternoon, America, and thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Invent America. We do this because Americans invent, and that is what our economy is based on. My next guest is Derry Griffin, and he has been a friend for a long time, an inventor who we met face-to-face in Utah when he drove up from California. He just had another patent issue, and so Derry, congratulations, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rita, and you are welcome.
So tell our listeners what you invent. I mean, you've been working in your industry for about 25 years. And so all of the things that you have invented are things that you felt you needed.
Correct.
So tell our listeners, what you've got, the 2 patents that have issued, and then you've got a couple that are still pending.
Okay. So I'm a general contractor. So my first trade was actually painting, decorating. That's where I served my apprenticeship as. So that's an arena that I feel has been neglected for millenniums at this point. It hasn't progressed whatsoever in the last 100 years, probably. And I feel like just day to day as I'm using tools, and I'm not the only one. I'm sure most contractors come up with little, tweaks to tools that just makes life a little easier for them. So I've come up with a few new tools, I feel, that just make life easier for anybody working on a ladder, working with basic, mostly paint technology, non-exclusively, but anybody who works in construction, basically. Little gizmos that I feel can make life a little easier,
Well, and little gizmos are cool because I remember when we were selling our place in Colorado and I was doing a lot with the similar kind of tools, spackling, and caulking, and holy cow, that stuff gushes all over the place. So your products, it would have been handy back then when we were doing that. And so I'm happy to be able to help you get them out there. What are your, as far as coming up with new ideas, what is your fear factor? What are the things that give you the most concern?
The most concern? You mean from basic first step to?
Yeah. Are you afraid someone's going to steal your idea? What is your, I know you go out there and you get your patents done. So that you're protecting yourself on that. But every inventor tends to have something that gives them the biggest case of indigestion.
I realize, life is risk and reward. And there is obviously a risk to putting your ideas out there. You might always get ripped off, right? But there's a definite real risk that you will never be discovered if you don't put it out there. So it's a balancing act, I guess. You just got to be as careful as you can, but you're going to put your stuff out there if you're serious about, trying to get your product to market, right?
Yep.
I feel like you just go through all the steps to protect yourself legally, and then it's like you just have to do it. You just have to jump in, right? That's what I feel.
Well, and that's good, because a lot of the things that, we show at the shows are patent pending. They don't wait. And I've always felt that it's a greater risk to wait, that somebody else then could take another product to market and take part of your market share, as opposed to, there's always a chance even after your patent issues that somebody's going to knock it off. The best story we have about somebody stealing intellectual property was Josh Malone with a bunch of balloons that got knocked off. And the company that he licensed it to is the company that went after the thief. And then, they won the lawsuit, and it, cost them several $1 million, but they won several more $1 million. So Josh was happy.
Right. Okay. I hope to have a story like that to tell someday.
Well, I hope you don't get knocked off and have to do that, but so knowing what you know now, you are 4 patents into this, 2 have issued. Congratulations again. That's a feat in and of itself. What advice do you have for our listeners out there? We've got listeners who are consumers that want to buy products, and we've got listeners who are potential inventors. Everybody's got the ability to take that step and be an inventor. But what advice do you have for someone?
Well, actually, I was very struck by what Andy said, that we all have talents, whatever they may be, and we are obliged to actually try and be creative if we are creative. It's almost part of our DNA, and we are denying ourselves opportunities if we don't try. Not even to say that we're going to succeed. Very, very possible you will fail. You're going to fail many, many times in life as you try to, create things. But I feel we have an obligation to give it a shot, and that's why I do it. And I mean, it's been a much longer, more bumpy road than I expected, but still a great journey, a very, very educational experience, just to see how things happen in the world. So I would say if people are inclined and they are curious, jump in and just do it and give it a shot, if you really believe in your product and your ideas.
Well, in inventors that do the best are the ones that have multiple ideas, and they get to the point where they're very practical about steps and doing, having their search done, doing the, getting the information and saying, okay, let's not do this one because there's too many other things that are in that ballpark and it doesn't really solve a clear problem. Love the guy that invented the flashlight that wraps around the pole. Still a light coming out of the end of a stick, but holy cow, now I don't have to hold it in my mouth to use both hands. So really love that one. And, the fact that you've got the ones that, now you don't have to try to carry your tools in your hand when you're going up the ladder to get on the roof. They actually fit into a belt or a holster. Right. Yeah. I mean, I try to, when I come up with ideas, and I come up with ideas every single day, I try to edit and choose the ones that have the widest appeal. That's the way I try to do it, at least. And time will tell if I've been successful. I don't know. We'll see. But, that's what I try to do, And you're right on that. That's where we always look at market potential. When someone calls me and say, okay, this is what I've got. And, I've been doing this long enough that I go, you know what? That one's, people have tried that before. It doesn't work right. And sometimes it's too expensive. We can't get it done. And so we always look at a variety of determiners is probably the best way to look at that on whether or not you should take that risk. And for the inventor that's got another idea, sometimes moving on is the best thing they can do. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you can't really fall in love with your ideas because just because you love it doesn't mean that the whole market is going to fall in love with it. So I think at a certain point you do have to check yourself and go is this practical? Is this actually really practical in the real world? Well, and it's funny because I always tell, inventors, it's like a good invention is like a child. You conceive it, you nurture it, it sucks you dry, you throw it out. And until you put it out there, it's never going to grow up and be big and take care of you. Oh God, I feel bad for your children. Well, they're actually doing just fine, and they learned that they learned that lesson is okay, Mama's going to throw us out. Hey, my mother always told me that too. At a certain point, you better be taking care of yourself. And so, but when you really think about a good invention, until it's out there in the world and selling, you're not going to get anything back from it. It's just a suck. Right. I mean, you really do have to believe in your product, really, to push it all the ways. I mean, I've literally had industry people literally seek me out to tell me my ideas they're not practical. I'm like, why would you do that? To me, it's like maybe you're threatened by the concept. I have no idea. It's a very strange world, but it certainly can be. That is true. Yeah. That is true. So anyway, I'm hoping that we will see you at the next ASD Market Week next March, because we will be back in Las Vegas at the show, and it was great, and we want to show your stuff off again. I do believe that I intend to make it. Unless something crazy happens. So yeah. Okay, no crazy. All right. Yeah. So everyone, if you've got any questions out there, join us at the Inventors Roundtable meetings that we talk about everything from fulfillment and packaging to the R&D tax credits and answer questions on manufacturing and prototyping. Everything that an inventor needs to know, we discuss. The meetings are free of charge, and we would love to have you join us. I had a couple of folks last week that sent in their form to be on the radio. Thank you very, very much. I go and look at those, and then I find an appropriate topic so I can get you invited in. If you want to be on the radio, It's free for inventors. You get to talk about your product, promote your website, and we love to have you share your experience with all of America. We're going to be right back with Don Skaggs, our industry expert today, and he's had a unique experience with the fear factor. So stick with us, everyone. Hello, America, and thank you for being with us on this segment of Invent America. I have got Don Skaggs with me. I've known Don for many, many years. He runs the Kentucky Inventor Group. And oh my goodness, they have some of the best meetings. So if you're not available for an IRT, Inventors Roundtable meeting, you can join Don's Kentucky group because I've done that many times as well. And they always have, they've got people from all over the world. I say all over the country, but he's got people from South Africa that join him. So it's pretty cool. Don, thanks for being with us today.
It's wild. They stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning for us, and I wouldn't stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning for me, but they do for whatever reason. So we're glad to have them.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and one of these days I might get some of those South Africa folks to be on the radio.
Fantastic.
Sometimes they've got really, really good lessons to learn. And
Absolutely.
So you're an inventor as well. You've got a product in the marketplace, and your interesting experience was that you kind of went out there with the idea somebody was going to knock you off. And then it's like, go for it because I can beat you anyway.
When you're dealing with $9 billion multinational corporations and you're out there and you're selling a lot of stuff in their market, you're going to get their attention. And, that's kind of the thing with a lot of inventors out there is they will, they're so afraid, but, before it really gets out there, usually nobody cares. When they start caring is when you start selling a lot and you become very visible. That now all of a sudden you have a target on your back. Well, the thing that I came to realize was that when these people that are trying to copy me and copy my product, really, they're not very original. If they were original, if they were inspired, if they were creative, they would already be doing what I'm doing, but they're not. They're copying me instead. So the best thing I ever did was always to just stay one step ahead of them. And little me and a small company start bootstrapped out of a farmhouse in Eastern Kentucky. We could stay ahead of multinational companies just because we had one superpower they didn't have, and that was creativity, innovation, and we were nimble. We could stay one step ahead.
Well, I think that's brilliant and good advice for everyone. I always tell people, when we're looking at licensing and now getting something into the market, it's like you cannot ignore what's going on in technology. You've got to pay attention, make it better. You can file new intellectual property if necessary, but
Absolutely.
You always want to stay one step ahead, all right? Because they can't read your mind. All they can do is copy your product. Stay one step ahead of the technology that's, somebody's going to copy and do a better job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, when they're afraid of being, we talked about when we first started the segment, different levels of fear factors. Some people fear the money obligation, some fear being copied. Some of them, then it's like, all right, well, I'm right now they're looking at the fear factor of manufacturing, overseas and being able to get it to this country versus manufacturing here in the U.S.
Right, exactly. And you know what? When it boils down to it, just in business, in inventing, in life, don't let fear drive the bus. Don't let it drive your decisions. Because if you let fear end up driving your decisions, it's going to paralyze you. I've seen this in so many inventors where it's like they'll be 10 years just working in stealth mode. They've got it hidden away in their garage. And they never show it to anybody, and time and the world and the market and everything else passes them by.
Yep.
Now, what if they'd actually done something and taken the risk? They let that fear hold them back, and their next door neighbors don't even know what they're working on.
I know. I talked to one young man. He had already taken several $100,000 from an investor and never filed any intellectual property. Well,
Wow.
That investor is going to want their money back at some point.
That's exactly
And,
right.
The fact that they never even checked to see if they could, they just assumed. They assumed they could. And boy, we run into that all the time, that somebody says, oh, I just wanted to keep it quiet and didn't want it to get out there. And as soon as we start searching, somebody's going to copy me. It's like, oh my goodness. I think that the fear factor is the most detrimental thing that an inventor can face.
And that's so true. I mean, if you think about it, your inventions, and I think you mentioned this earlier in the show, that your invention, your idea, your product, it's kind of like a baby. And you gave birth to it, so it kind of feels like your offspring. But if you treat your idea, if you treat your invention like it's a baby, it's going to behave like a baby. And I don't care if it's diapers or college tuitions. If you treat an invention like it's a baby, it's going to behave like a baby. And babies cost money. And but when the day you decide you're going to start treating it like a product, that's the day it's going to start behaving like a product. And that's what makes the difference.
It is. That's so true. So real quick, we're running out of time. Tell our inventors what's coming up in Kentucky in a few weeks.
Yes, we are going to have the Innovation Station at the Kentucky State Fair. And this is an opportunity for any inventor, entrepreneur with product to sell to actually sell their product and test their market, and hopefully walk away with some money in their pocket, because they're actually going to be able to sell product there at the state fair. So if you want to know more, just email me, info@kyinventors.org, and we would love to send you an application.
And I put that out in our newsletter, as well as my posts for the IRT meeting tonight. But if anybody out there wants to get more information about this and you can't find exactly the link to Don, shoot me over a text message, because I am more than happy to share that information with you. Don, thanks so much for being with us today. I am grateful.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, all of America, for listening to this segment of Invent America. And if you've got questions about the inventing process and want to join us at the Inventor Roundtable meetings, they are free. And if you would like to get on the radio and join us all across America, that is free for inventors as well. And we would love to have you. Talk to you next week, everyone. Stick with us now as we go into the third hour of Home Talk USA with Made in USA.